myself. I've been pushing through pain, I've been fighting like hell. It's hard to feel safe and steady when you're sick inside your body.
Okay, cool. So let's get into it. This week's episode is with Renee Marsden, previously Renee Horton, when we
Yes.
first met.
So exciting.
She just got married a couple months ago now. That's so crazy. It kind of feels like it was really long ago.
I know. You were
I don't
at
know.
my
Maybe
wedding,
it feels.
which is awesome.
Yeah. So we first met in I think 2018. We met through
That
Amber.
sounds about right.
Yeah, our mutual friend Amber Stoneman, who she's a part of I Love the Way You Lime. She lives in Nashville. And at the time you were living in
South
Charleston?
Carolina, Greenville.
Greenville. Okay.
Yeah.
And we met. I wasn't really sure actually what I was doing health wise. All I knew is that you had Lyme disease. So Amber put us in touch, and like the first core memory I have of our friendship, and that time was like really foggy. So we probably talked before this too, but I just remember like it was when I was really sick, went back home to live with my parents for a few months when I was trying to figure out what to do. And I had that episode, and I just remember like laying in the guest room bed, which I guess eventually became my room. And then, like you and I would just like sit on the phone for like hours talking. You'd send me worship music. Like you would like tell me about all these different treatments I should try or like supplements, and like you just became like immediately like my big sister, which was so interesting because we never even met in person till like I think a year later or something like that.
I would have used the same word when you were going to say you became like, I was going to go into friend, but it's really like sister. Yeah. We talked all the time.
Yeah. And we talked about like our future, and like we dreamed up like cuz we both were single at the time. I had like just recently gotten out of a breakup, and you like walked me through that, and we talked so much about like relationships and Lyme disease and
Yeah.
literally like anything linked to Lyme, and actually not even just Lyme, like what we were going through in life, and just trying to figure out like we knew what we wanted and how we'd get there. And it's so crazy because if that was 2018, then how long ago was that? 5 years ago, I think.
Yeah. Maybe. Maybe.
I could do the
The count of my hands.
Yeah. So
Okay,
that's
so.
so crazy because now you're married, you're living like back in Nashville. We just missed each other.
Yeah, I know. I was so bummed about that. Plus, I thought
Yeah.
we were going to be roommates, but then we both got husbands. But they're best
Oh yeah,
roommates, you know.
I forgot we talked about being roommates because I was going to move back, and now
Yeah.
I don't live there, but it's okay. So like tell us, I know about you, but tell everyone about you. You sing, you act, you dance, you kind of do it all. But yeah, go and talk about like who you are, what you love to do, and then after that maybe we can go into like your Lyme journey.
Okay. Should we start with what I was doing before Lyme or just what I'm doing now?
Yeah, let's go with what you're doing before Lyme.
Okay. So before Lyme, I grew up, my mom was a choir director at church. So I grew up singing, dancing, and acting on stage in the plays. And I was singing and dancing and acting for anybody who would pay attention to me before I was even on the stage because my mom put me there. Like, that literally was just me as a person. Like, if you would watch me perform, I'd be like, okay, ready? Here I go. And I'd have to be like so good. And then she was also a piano teacher. She tried to make me do piano. And I would just sit there and I was just so bored. And I was like, I just want to be dancing around the room and I want to be creative and expressing my creativity. Like, this is limiting. Like, I hated it. It drove her nuts. So I got in dance at an early age, probably about 5 years old maybe, and did a lot of shuffle, step, and tap, little ballet things. And then I loved it. I stayed in the studio. I lived at the dance studio. I ended up in companies and apprenticing a older company when I was just in middle school. And this, I don't think I told anybody this, but the lady who was hiring for the senior company, the reason why she didn't put me in it is because I didn't have a figure. Because I was like little, really petite. She's like, you just don't look like grown, and you don't have a figure for this. And I just was like,
What the heck?
like just scarred for life. And I had a crush on this
Jeez.
boy who was in the dance troupe too. And I was just like, I don't want to tell him. I don't want to tell him.
I don't want to tell him I don't have a figure.
Yeah. I don't have a figure. And then, and I had a low voice. So I remember when he was going through puberty, he was like, Renee, you make me feel so good. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, you just make me feel so much better about myself. I'm like, that's awesome. He's like, because you have a lower voice than mine. And I was like,
Oh my
I mean,
gosh.
just, it's funny now.
Yeah.
These are just random things that just popped in my head about dance. I don't know why.
That's so
Yeah,
funny.
but so I did dance and I would do my homework at the studio. I stayed there all day after school. Like I was in all the different companies and I just worked my butt off. Like I was such a perfectionist. So my teachers
Mm.
could not get me off the floor. Like that's probably what helped me go through Lyme, honestly. But like I don't give
Yeah.
up. So I'm just like there like pounding it in like no, I have to get a triple pirouette before tomorrow or I just won't make it. Like
Whoa.
so I worked really hard and then I joined theater because I loved acting and I won some awards and did theater in high school and I sang in the choir. And then I moved to Nashville, ended up, well, like if you rewind, I went through a lot of trauma. Okay. So I did go through a lot of
Yeah,
trauma, like
yeah.
friend committed suicide. I went through rape, just different traumas that I think later led into the whole Lyme journey as well. So I'll
Definitely,
just sweep
yeah.
over that, but there was a lot of trauma. So
Yeah.
my creative outlet for that was dance, of course. And then in cheerleading, I got
Mm.
dropped from like 20 something feet in the air, landed flat on the weight room floor on my back. And they thought I was going to be paralyzed, but I was temporarily paralyzed, had spasms everywhere, had to learn to walk again, had a really bad back injury. And
Wow.
if I didn't do a certain amount of like deep tissue massage therapy, I couldn't walk. So
Holy
yeah, and I had
cow.
to do school from home. And that injury was one of my first big concussions.
Mm.
And
Which that also plays, like, concussions and trauma, they play, like, a huge part
yeah,
later in your
so that's why I
Lyme,
thought I'd include
yeah,
that because I
story.
never knew that when I just went down with Lyme. I'm like, wait, what just happened? Because I was living this life and now I'm
Yeah,
here. And
yeah.
so this is all kind of part of it, but I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, so I found my own personal relationship with God. Like I grew up in church, but then I found it for myself, fell in love with Jesus, and He really helped me overcome trauma. But then also, I did go through more. But the cool thing is, I just was determined to rise above everything. I didn't want the bad stuff to win. Like, I still wanted to
Mm.
win for myself. I still wanted to overcome it. So, my way of overcoming it was really going all in on my dancing and acting and singing stuff as a career.
Yeah.
And I would have gone further with the singing, but I dated somebody, which was a really toxic relationship. And he was basically like, you can't sing. And he was jealous of everything I did. So he put everything down. And I was like, oh, I suck at
Mm.
everything. So it's like really, really bad. But that was several years of that. So that really got in my head. And I gave up all my
Yeah.
dreams for him. And then when I got out of that, I was like, wait, who was I before him? Because I was a professional ballroom dancer
Well,
before. So, and choreographed musicals. So when I got out of it, first thing I did was I tried out for Titans and I made it to like the top 10 or top 20 or something. I didn't make it. And then somebody was like, you should really do the Predators. And I was like, what's that? They're like, the hockey team? I was like, oh, yeah. And I was like, I don't know much about hockey and I cannot ice skate. And they were like, you don't have to. I was like, cool, I'm a girl. And they were like, you get free hair, free tanning, free nails, free gym membership, free coaching, like all this stuff for a year. And I was like, okay, that sounds like Cinderella. That's amazing. Sign me
yeah,
up.
it's funny.
So I tried out and then I made that. And I did that for like a whole year and I got to kind of find myself again. And that was really cool.
Mm.
And then went through couples counseling, took the guy back, tried to work through a lot of stuff. Eventually realized that wasn't changing and I needed to leave and I needed to love myself and I needed to heal my own junk and take care of
Mhm.
myself. So I then went and did missions and went to YWAM, which was like 6 months. So it was 3 months in Hawaii and 3 months in South Africa. And when I went out there, I had been through so much trauma, more than I just mentioned earlier, that I
Mhm.
was just broken and I didn't know how I felt about God. I didn't know if He really loved me. I just didn't know what He was about. Because I was like, if you're not about my happiness and you're not about things working out here, then what are you about? So I was like, let me go figure this
Mhm.
out. So I left for 6 months because I had some money left over. Oh, from touring Taylor Swift. Forgot about that. Yeah, I
Mhm.
auditioned for Taylor Swift. That was a big thing. And I didn't think I would make that. And I remember during the audition, I like pulled off of the ramp off the interstate, huge warehouse, and it was lined around the block. And they were like, I think they said there were about 2,500 people auditioning.
Oh my
Yeah, and I showed
gosh.
up and I was like, what am I doing here? I need to leave. And so I immediately turned off the interstate and went back the other direction. And then I got off the interstate again. I was like, okay, God, all you do is ask me to show up. I just have to show up. I may not make it, but I just have to show up. And I was like, I can't quit. So I like go back, wait in the whole long line, get there. And I think it was 4 or 5 days of auditioning. And so by the
Wow.
second to the last day, I started looking around. I'm like, I'm still here. Wait, maybe I can do this. Maybe I have a chance. Like, I was like, this might actually work out. And I just gave it my all and did what I could do, and it was awesome. And I got on the tour, and then I left several months later, and then I ended up doing the whole mission trip. That's when I went. So I had
Yeah.
all this loss, called off my wedding. Like there was a whole bunch of stuff at once, and then I went away. And
Yeah.
so I did that. I was really numb when I went out there, and I started feeling my heart again. So I kept a whole journal of every time I felt my heart move. I did. So I came back and was doing better. And then I started like kind of changing my life around to what I wanted it to look like. And I was walking across the street, got hit by a car. Forgot about that. So I had another
Mm.
concussion. And I learned later that when you have a concussion, there's a blood-brain barrier. It protects your brain from diseases, infections, all the toxins that you get around
Mhm.
every day, plus infections. And it keeps your brain from getting contaminated from all that stuff. Protects you. But when you have a concussion, it opens. And the,
Whoa, I did not know that.
yeah, things you learn. So any infection or any disease you catch can then go in your brain. And I caught something when I was in South Africa doing the mission work out
Mm.
there. And I found out later that since my blood brain barrier was open, it went in my brain. I also found out later that because I had strep so many times as a kid, that went in my brain because I tested positive for pandas,
Wow.
which is only a kid disease. But it just means you have an
Yeah,
infection in an autoimmune brain.
that part is so, like, I had strep all the time when I was a kid. I ended up getting my tonsils out in 5th grade, and then even after that, I would still get, like, the sore throats and everything, and that's something that I've talked to so many different people with Lyme and find out that they had a lot of them had that link when they were a
That's
kid
cool because I didn't
too.
know that a lot of people had that, but I had strep over and over and over and over.
Yeah, and I didn't know about the pandas thing till, like, a couple years ago, and I still don't fully understand what it is, but I just know it's somehow linked to the strep. But yeah, that it's just so interesting because strep, like, back then, I remember thinking, like, it's not a huge deal, it's just annoying,
Yeah,
but then
same. I hated
you
it. It
wonder
would just hurt my
yeah,
throat. I'm like, oh.
because that's kind of like early Lyme or something.
Hmm.
It's just
That is
interesting.
weird.
Anyways, go ahead.
So there's pandas and there's pans. I forget the difference in those. But
Yeah. Oh.
basically, it can be strep, it can be Lyme, and it can be mono, and it goes in the brain. And it makes your brain
Mm.
have encephalitis, which is inflammation of your brain, and then it can
Mhm.
cause it to be autoimmune. And there's a certain test to find out if you have it or not. And I took that test as an adult, but it's a kid disease. So if you have it in your blood work, then you had it as
Oh,
a kid. Hmm.
interesting.
So I forget the name of that test.
Wow.
It's a good test for people who have neurolyme. Actually, a really
Yeah.
good test to do if you have neurolyme because it usually means you have encephalitis and you could have autoimmune encephalitis, which is what I had. But
Wow.
yeah, but we're winding back. Okay, so then uh, got hit by the car. Didn't want to share that with my agent or anything because I wanted to work. And so I had a dance audition shortly after that, and it was in front of all these people I toured with and all these people I knew, and we were in Atlanta for this huge audition for like CMA Christmas, I think. And I blanked in front of everybody there. I never told anybody why, so if you're
Holy
watching,
cow.
I know. But I blanked in front of everyone, and I left, and I just cried. And my agent was like, "Hey, I heard you didn't do good. I heard da-da-da-da." And I was like, "Yeah," and I didn't want to tell him because I thought he would make me stop.
Oh my
So I
gosh.
didn't tell him. And then sorry, agents. So not great advice for people with concussions. Don't push yourself and keep going. It makes it worse. You'll find out later. So then I went on another audition, and I didn't tell him what was going on. I was like, okay, I hope I can do this. I hope I can do this. And I prayed about it, and I went, and they were like, does anybody here do acting as well? Because we need an actress for this part. And I was like, yeah, I used to do theater. That's when I started acting on film. So I jumped in that one
Oh,
thing. Yeah,
interesting.
and then
I didn't realize that.
I
Okay.
know. So that's like opened up the whole door with acting, which was really beautiful. And I always tell people not to be afraid of shifting your dreams or letting God change your dreams, because you just never know what other one will open up and what that will do for you too, and how much you'll love it. So I ended up loving that maybe even more than dancing. Probably more, yeah.
Wow.
And then that opened up the door for like the movies and TV stuff and Lifetime movie and Vampire Diaries and all the film. And I just had so much fun as an actress. I loved telling stories. I still do. I just haven't done it in a long time because obviously I lost the use of my brain for quite some time. But so yeah, so that was what opened the door for acting. And then like just this was dumb. This was just dumb. But we went on a ski boat right after a music film festival that I was in with some friends, and we all went to celebrate, went boating. And I remember we were about to get on the tube, and I was like, wait, I can't do that. And I had a gut feeling, like I just knew I shouldn't do this.
Ugh.
I knew it. And I was like, I can't do that. And they were like, why? And I said, because it's in my contract. They're like, you're not a dancer anymore, you're an actress. You can do it now. And I was like, oh yeah. And I still had a feeling, but I was just like, that's a dumb feeling. I'm going to ignore that. I'm going to jump on this tube with this one person. And me and her were on the same tube, and we hit a huge wake. And this is what happened. I don't know what happened. This was told to me. So I went above her when we hit this huge wake. I went above her, and my head slammed her head twice and then slammed the water. And I went out. She had what would be like a mild concussion because it was her first one ever. I ended up having the worst concussion of my life that should have taken my life. It was so
Because it was
bad.
your third at that
I don't
point,
remember the rest of the
right?
day. I vomited. I like ran a fever. I mean, it was so bad. And I didn't know what happened. I was like, maybe I drank on the boat too much because I did have a drink.
Wow.
Yeah, but I didn't drink enough to do that. And I just was like, maybe that's what happened. I don't know. And I called a friend who played for Titans, and he was like, hey, Renee, pretty sure you have a concussion. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, what did you do? And I was like, I don't remember. My head hurts so bad. I can't even see. And I was like, I just want to like throw up. And he goes, so you hit your head? I'm like, yeah, I think I hit my head. And he goes, please go to the hospital. And I was like, they're so expensive. So I called a big concussion clinic, right, that they send them to. He gave me a name, so I called him and was like, I think I had a concussion. She's like, when did you have it? And I was like, probably yesterday. And she's like, what are your symptoms? And I told her, she's like, you need to go now. Like now. You could have an aneurysm and die. Like you need to go. And I was like, but it's expensive. And she was like, you could die. And I was like, I'll think about it.
Death is more expensive.
Yeah, and I was like, I'll think about it. I got off the phone thinking about it, and I asked my roommate. She was like, this is stupid. You do not have a concussion. That is so dumb, but I'll drive you anyway, just so you quit talking about it. And I was like, it was a bad roommate situation.
Gosh, give her a concussion.
It was a bad roommate situation at that time, I'm not going to lie. So anyway, she did drive me to the hospital, though, so that's something I can be thankful for with that. And I went, and worst concussion of my life, and it was my sixth one. I think it was my sixth concussion.
Oh, you're 6?
That was my number 6.
Holy cow.
I had a bunch, but I was naming some of the worst ones, but I had other ones, and I had one as a baby. But anyways, I did have, and I went cross-eyed after that. Interesting. But I did have one then as well, and that was my worst one. and I just started healing my brain. Anyway, I did like the whole stay in bed, stay in the dark, no TV, no sound, no talking, nothing for like, and I did it for 2 months. It was insane.
Wow.
My mom came up to take care of me. Anyway, so I went through that whole season and was going to the chiropractor, and he was really helping me through this because they really can help when you've had concussions. I recommend it. So
Hmm.
when did that, he helped me a lot too, and I thought I was doing better. And I went to my concussion specialist at Vanderbilt, and we did all the tests, walked the line, all this stuff you do, and he's like, "You're actually worse. Like, I don't know how this is possible, but you're not getting better." And I was like, "I'm doing everything you're telling me to do. I thought I was going to be better, and I wasn't better." So I went home and I just prayed. And I was like, "Okay, God, like, I know you've called me into acting. I know you've called me to do these things, and uh, I'm more afraid to not be able to do what you're calling me to do than go wherever you want me to go. So I'm done being scared. Like, send me where you want to go, and like heal me so I can do it." And I just started doing the chiropractor. I found that chiropractor. He worked with me a lot. And then I got on my feet again. And someone said they were going to LA to go do a singing thing. And if I would back up, sing for them in Vegas. And I was like, sure. So I basically got a flight and met her out there and sang, and did not plan to move there. Just got a one-way ticket because I didn't know what I was going to do. And I left the other roommate thing. So, which was good. So when I got out there, I was just there, one-way ticket, not knowing what I'm going to do. And it was like midnight before I either had to fly back after everyone threw me a going away party because they thought I was moving. And I was like, I'm not moving. This is embarrassing if I come back 2 weeks later.
That's so
Yeah.
funny.
And so anyway, midnight, I hear from somebody, and she was like, "By the way, my mom has a place. Do you still need something? Sorry we didn't get back to you." And I was like, "Yeah, can I move in like now?" And she's like, "Let me call." And then it worked out, and they got a little neighbor to like let me in at midnight, and I was terrified. I'm like, "I'm in LA, never been here, don't know anybody. This is insane." And then
Oh
I was
my
out there for several
gosh.
years, and I did a lot of acting. I did TV hosting. I ended up hosting on the red carpet at Universal Studios. Just amazing things. It was in a Lifetime movie, and but behind the scenes, my health was getting so much worse. I would swell up and look really pregnant. And I remember going to a naturopath, and she was, because I exhausted all the other options of medical at this point. So I went there,
Okay.
and she was like, "Oh, you'd be surprised how many actresses have this. This is like leaky gut stuff, gut issues." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And she said, "A lot of it's stress and a lot of it's other things. And so we'll just work with you." And I was like, "Okay." So we were working on that, my gut health. And I was like, "I can't be hired and be like a pregnant vampire on set. They're not going to like that, you know?" So she was like, "Okay." So we're working on it. And then I ended up collapsing at my apartment. My landlord found me on the floor, took me to the hospital, and I
Wow.
was there for 7 days seeing every specialist they had, and no one found answers. Um, and the crazy thing is at this point, my friend Kathy, who was in my wedding too, she and I were plugged in out in LA, and the girl said, "You guys need to meet. You're both from the South. You both love like country music, and you enjoy watching The Bachelor, and you both have weird health issues." Like, and that's
Oh, because Kathy was going through,
she had
yeah,
Lyme,
hers.
and so she plugged us in by having weird health issues. And Kathy kept saying, she's like, "I don't want to like impose or make you feel like you have something, but really think you might want to check for Lyme." And I was like, "That's not
Oh,
this.
that's
This is
like
more weird."
that's so
Like,
hard.
I kept ignoring
Yeah.
it over and over, and then went to the hospital, and they were looking for everything, no answers. And then I still did the Lifetime movie. I don't remember being there. Apologize to
Wow.
the director, but I don't remember being there. And I remember getting there and knowing where I was, and all of a sudden I didn't know who I was, where I was, who these people around me were. And I was like, what am I doing? So it's crazy that that happened on a Lifetime set. I say that's a very Lifetime movie thing to happen. On a Lifetime movie, and that's the first time I went completely out of my head. And I didn't know where I was or who I was or if I was alive or if I was dead or anything. I just didn't know any reality.
Crazy.
And I filmed that day. They actually said I did a good job. I haven't watched it. I don't watch all my stuff. I would pick it apart
Mm.
probably. But anyway, they said it was good. My friends have said it was good. But uh, I don't remember filming that day at all. So maybe I should watch it just to be amazed at the fact that I acted and knew my lines.
Yeah, that you got
No
through.
idea. But I remember going home that night and it would get worse in the evening and worse and worse and worse. And I started not knowing who I am. I would hear things, see things. It just wasn't good. Wasn't good at all. And I remember just praying and being like, God, I want to be married one day. I want to be a mom one day. And I don't know what's happening to my brain. I don't know what's happening to me. I don't know why I can't digest food. I lost all color in my skin. I was dropping weight fast. I couldn't hold down solid food. Then I was trying to do juice diet. I couldn't hold down juice. Everything made my stomach expand like crazy. It hurt so bad. And then I remember the pain got so bad in my head. I just remember this, that I would sit on the floor and scream and just hold my head. And I lived by myself. And it was unbearable. Like when they say level 1 to 10 in the hospital, now I know what a 10 is.
Yeah.
So now I know I'm only like a 2 if I have something anymore at all. But it used to be a 10. And that is just screaming because it's such bad pain. You can't. And you'd like pass out from the pain. It's so bad. So
Wow.
it was bad. And then I was looking at every option. So finally I thought of my friend who kept saying Lyme, and I was like, I'll just look it up. I don't know anything about it. I decided to look up symptoms. I didn't want to know if I was going to die or not. So I just looked up symptoms so that I wouldn't get scared. And I think the thing I was reading, I think had like 48 symptoms or 70. It was a really high number. I had all but 2 of those. Every single one. And then when I finally got to a doctor, she was like, I'm sorry it took you so long. We'll run blood work, but we're going to start treatment right away anyway because you're like latest stage neuro Lyme.
For Lyme?
Yeah. I was done.
Was that doctor in LA? Wow.
Yeah. And I didn't know
So wait, how
they
old
knew
were
how
you?
bad it was until I went back years later for treatment. And she cried when she saw me walk through the door because she didn't know if I was going to live through it all. And she said my parents called her almost daily asking if they need to take me to the ER or if they just go through it at home with me. And I didn't know that. I mean, I'm so grateful I don't remember everything, but I don't remember some of the hardest suffering.
Was that doctor that you finally got the Lyme diagnosis from, was that doctor in Los Angeles?
Yeah. I'm so grateful to her. I literally gathered all of my hospital, all my medical, and it was stacked. I mean, I'd been going to the hospital for years at this point.
Holy cow.
Yeah, often. And they always were just like, oh, you need therapy because you've been through so much trauma. It's definitely trauma. Or you're developing MS. Or what all did I hear? You don't have anything wrong with you. Your blood work's fine.
Yeah. Depression's a common one for people, I think.
Yeah. So it's just so much.
You're depressed. Which it's like, yeah, I'm depressed because I am going through all these symptoms, not just depressed.
And they put me on a lot of like mental health drugs. And even since my first concussion in high school, I immediately like developed more manic and like depressive stuff back then. But I'd also lost someone to suicide, and I'd also been raped. I'd been through a lot of things, so it made sense I was really depressed. But also, it was after the head injury, and what I've learned about concussions now, I mean, man, what they know now is so much better, but they didn't know it then. This was 2000 or something. Yeah, year 2000. We didn't know a lot.
So, how old were you when you finally got diagnosed?
31.
Holy
32.
cow.
I was 32.
That's insane to go that long.
That's why I was in the hospital a lot, and by the time they found it, I was, But it wasn't.
And you wonder where it started.
What?
You wonder when it's like where and when it started. Like what? Like did you have it since you were a kid?
I think
because the strep stuff.
So this is what I've learned because I've done so much testing throughout the years. When I first did the Lyme blood work with that lady who was treating me, Lyme didn't come up, but the co-infections did. So that's why I always recommend people do the test that has the co-infections, because if you have a co-infection, you definitely already have Lyme. But sometimes the co-infections are worse than Lyme. So I hate that we always say Lyme, because my first one was Babesia. If I was going to say what was the worst thing you've ever been through, it would be Babesia. But
You need it, like, all under an umbrella, though, like,
It's an
I don't I
umbrella.
wish they would somehow just put it all under Lyme because out of all of them, I feel like Lyme is the most known, I guess, and it
Yeah,
also seems like the common denominator, like you said, like, you don't usually have the other things if you don't have Lyme,
yeah.
so
And Lyme
yeah, I
eventually
know, I
showed
w
up. It just didn't in the first test. Um,
yeah, which that's so common with the blood work too, like, I was just telling someone that the other day, they're like, "Well, how many tests?" I think I got a couple tests done before anything finally showed positive, but that's normal for the
I
blood work
know. I found
tests.
that out too. And the best blood work I did was the DNA one. I think it was.
Oh, DNA
I think that's what it
connections?
was. But they made me like go work out and then go exercise. Then I had to go sweat it out in a sauna. So that you're basically pulling anything out of your tissue because what I learned was the reason why it doesn't pick up in
Whoa.
blood work is if you have an acute infection, it's in the blood. But if you have a chronic long term thing, it's in your tissue. So in order to get it to show up in the blood, you have to get it out of the tissue. So they made me do all this stuff to sweat it out, get it out, make it pull out of tissue. So I mean, I like went for it. You know, I went pretty hard for
That's
that.
nuts.
And then when we got the test back, it showed the DNA and the strain of Babesia that I always suspected in South Africa is when it took me down. So when I was in South Africa, I caught something. I never throw up, and I found out in Lyme that's common too. When I get sick, I never throw up, and I
Hmm.
never really ran fevers. Um, so when I was in South Africa, I caught something and I vomited for several days. I like was dry heaving and had the worst fever, the highest fever I've ever had, the sickest I've ever been in my life. Was in South Africa, and then after
Wow.
it passed, I was losing clumps of hair, and then that's when I developed all these GI issues, and they like really ramped up, and then brain stuff slowly started hitting, and it was just really bad. But
Wow.
yeah, but I found out the strain of Babesia I had was from South Africa. It wasn't one we have in America. So that's why that
Interesting.
was my worst thing because every Lyme doctor I saw here, and you know, I saw a lot of specialists, including a
Mhm.
doctor Justin Bieber has, so we share him. But yeah,
Oh, you went to her?
not her. Amen clinics. Yeah, they're the ones that really helped my
Oh, I
brain.
thought you meant the
They
other
helped my
one.
brain so much. But
That's cool.
but anyways, so I found out I had that strain from South Africa, and so I went to all these doctors, and they always said I was their hardest case and like worst case, and they wouldn't. I had Lyme doctors quit on me, like multiple. They were
Mm.
just like, "I wish I could help you, but I know that I can't," and so I'm referring you to you should go see this person, or I hope you see this person, or
Yeah.
yeah. And I appreciate. It.
I
I'd
feel like
rather
that's
someone tell me they can't
common.
help me than keep me there.
Yeah.
So I was
Yeah.
grateful,
Yeah.
but it was hard.
Yeah. I feel like the doctors that I've gone to, like, as I've had a couple that have kinda had the same thing, like, they wanna keep helping, but they're just like they can only do so much, especially with, like, I don't even know, like, do they ever even have training for Lyme disease, or do these doctors learn on their own? And it's all just kind of weird,
Yeah.
but anyways, so I know that you got your, finally got your diagnosis in your 30s, and after going to, like, so many specialists, already trying different kinds of treatments, and then, I know you did stem cell. You're the one who told me about the stem cell clinic we went to, and then I remember you also told me about neurofeedback, which ended up being a huge game changer for me,
Same.
and I think neurofeedback was probably one of like it for from my point of view of your journey, it was just like you trying thing after thing after thing and like chugging along, kind of having a like little light that this might be working and then something would happen and it was
Crisis.
like so much on and off. Yeah, and then I'll never forget like me telling you, I think I'm going to try like this, I need to do something with my brain or whatever, and you're like, "Oh, yeah, neurofeedback," and I remember it, like, helped your whole body heal, it seemed like, after doing the neurofeedback because your brain was finally healing, right?
So, all right. So when I got diagnosed, I was still trying to act. I moved to Atlanta, and I was just going to be closer to my family, do my life, and have Lyme be my side thing. I was just going to do treatment on the side. Wasn't going to be my whole focus, and I thought it'd be 6 months and I'd be back.
Yeah.
That's what I planned on. And I ended up not knowing I was driving a car. Should not have been on the road.
Holy cow.
Yeah, driving around and not realizing I'm in a car or I'm driving and being like, where am I? What am I doing? And like derealization is what they call it, but I would completely leave reality. I just wouldn't know who I am, where I am, what I'm doing. And a lot of times I didn't know if I was alive or not. And that was terrifying because I'm like, I don't feel alive. I don't feel present. Like it was just so out of body.
Yeah.
But I found out that I ended up having autoimmune encephalitis, but I didn't know that answer yet. So this was just inflamed brain really, really bad. Didn't know that either. And I was doing all the treatments like the IVs and the ozone and all these treatments and hadn't done genetic testing, which found out that I don't detox like normal people can detox. I have a gene that didn't allow me to really do that. So we didn't know that. So we're killing infection, but I can't detox it. So even if I'm in sauna and everything, I'm not getting it out. And did they even tell me to do sauna then? No, they weren't even telling me that yet. So I'm just doing all this killing and I have nothing to get it out. So basically the inflammation in my brain is just insane at this point. Somebody let me borrow a hyperbaric chamber because he actually worked with them and was like, I've heard these help people. Maybe you should try it out. I think this thing saved my life because it was given to me really early on. And I just borrowed one for free and I did it every day. And I noticed a difference by doing it every day. I'd all of a sudden get clear and I'm like, whoa. And that was really cool. But then there was a point where in treatment 5 days a week, I think it was 5 days a week of IVs, hours a day. And still trying to go to church, still trying to do acting. And I got to a point, remember I was in Cheesecake Factory and I was writing a letter to like God about how I feel like I'm called to do all these things, but it's getting so hard and I feel like I'm gonna have to quit. And why are you taking my dreams away? Like I've already had to call off a wedding. I've already had all this trauma. I've already had to leave LA and now I'm facing sickness and like when is it enough? And why am I going through this? And I just was like breaking down because I did not want to leave what I loved doing. And anyway, I prayed with a friend and I made a decision to go home and move home. And it was good timing because they were planning to help me move out. And then shortly after that, I started having to like sleep in that chamber because the pain would be so bad. I'm screaming again. Didn't recognize when I was real or not. Dropped like to 70 something pounds. My family said I was like see-through. Like there was no color whatsoever in my body.
Cow.
And then by the time I got home, I was in a wheelchair. I was bedridden and I couldn't hold a water bottle and I couldn't hold my head up and I couldn't sit up on my own. They had to help me sit up in bed. I was in pain everywhere. I was constantly having the screaming head pain. It was like a seizure, but it was more like convulsions, tremor, junk, and it's just because every organ in my whole nervous system was erupting because it was just just going through so much, and I had no idea. But I think I just had everything across the board, everything from mold to mast cell to Lyme to Babesia to all the co-infections to autoimmune encephalitis to everything. So I did the stem cells.
Yeah.
And then I got back thinking I was going to get better. And I was alive. Like I knew it was keeping me alive, but I got worse. I was still bedridden, still couldn't do anything. My parents took shifts in a chair next to my bed 24 hours a day because if I woke up and didn't know where I was or woke up in like one of those seizure episodes or couldn't breathe, like it felt like breathing through a straw. I had the air hunger and stuff you get really bad and POTS and just everything. Like I don't remember everything I've had. I had everything. And so they would be there for all the suffering. And it was just never ending, ongoing suffering. You know, like everybody here who's listening that has Lyme knows. Like it's not like you have the flu and you sleep and you eventually get better and feel stronger again. It just doesn't stop. It doesn't get better. It doesn't end, and you continue to suffer. And I had to learn how to suffer. I basically had to learn how to go through that and still know who I am outside of that. And so my focus during all the treatments and all the experience with the hard suffering was to know that my identity is not my disease and it's not treatment, even though my whole life was
Mm,
revolving around treatment. I had to see myself out of it. And so that was my main thing. And Pinterest helped too. I did a lot of
mm.
that when my brain was going crazy. I'd just look at Pinterest and start looking at designing rooms.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think like that's probably, if I could guess, from an outsider's perspective for people who don't like have Lyme and don't maybe even still understand it, it's I can imagine it's hard to understand and like endless suffering because like a regular person's used to hearing just like, yeah, like you said, like the flu or you caught like a
You
cold
watch
or strep or
TV in
whatever it
bed.
is,
That's what I thought people meant when.
and it has an end in sight. You take like an antibiotic or you take like your holistic remedies or whatever it is, and there's an end in sight. And when you get to someone who has like a, and I know I say this a lot, I hate saying chronic Lyme, but it's like what better word is there to describe when you have like Lyme past a certain point where it's like, okay, am I going to be able to get rid of this or am I stuck with these symptoms or what symptoms can I get rid of? And like, it's just this chronic Lyme in a box, I guess. And, but then like, they're still seeing us like function and like, I can imagine how confusing it must be. But like you said, like, you literally learn, it sounds, like, really sad, but you really learn how to, like, suffer, you could even just say, like, persevere, like, you just learn how to get through
Yeah.
it, and it is those things like Pinterest or, like, coming up with, like, a vision board or just, like, us talking on the phone back then about, like, what our husbands were gonna be like or,
Yeah.
like, did we know them? Did we not know them? Like, I don't know how we wanted kids and a family and all this different stuff. We wanted to like, both pursue our dreams and stuff again. I don't know. I have this thing with you because you've been in this like journey with me the longest, like the closest, the longest with
Same.
Lyme. And so like when I was standing up there at your wedding and like it I think at the wedding, like I was more focused on like just praying like you'd be able to like get through it and like everything would go smooth. But at the rehearsal when I was standing on stage, like I just remember I just kept getting so choked up because I just kept having flashbacks to, like, when we would be on FaceTime, like, both being in bed or, like, just being on the phone, and, like, it's so although there's still stuff that you like, symptoms you still are going through and, like, go through, um, and maybe, like, the rest of your healing you're still trying to figure out, and I know for myself too, when I look back at, like, where we were that helps me feel, like, really, like, hopeful because
Yeah.
we're not in that place, and it's you kind of, like, have to remind yourself of where you were, when there are really hard days because it's easy to feel like, I tell, like, Andrew, like, all the time, like, I'm just so tired of the pain, like, my patience just is just, like, I remember, like, 2 years ago, I was like, "Yeah, like, I can feel my patience running low," and I'm like, "Now I really don't have, like, patience I feel for it." But then again, like, we just are both, like, able to live our lives still. Yeah, I don't know. It's just so cool to, like it's so cool to see where you are now and, like,
I love what
you're married
I love
and
what you were just
yeah.
saying because I talked to my friend yesterday, and this was a friend that I didn't really know very well. And he is in ministry and has like a jujitsu ministry, and he's single for all the ladies out there. Great guy. Plug. He would love that plug. And I know he'll watch this.
That's
But
so funny.
anyways, so when you're sick like that, when you're in bed and you can't live life anymore. You can't meet up with people. You can't go to lunch. I couldn't walk to the bathroom on my own, and I couldn't dress myself, and I couldn't they told me to have a chair in the shower, and I refused because I was like, no, it's gonna make me use it like a crutch, and I don't want to get atrophy, and so no. And so like literally up until I could stand in the shower, I just sat at the bottom of the tub. I mean, I might as well have had
Oh,
a chair. At least it'd be easier to get out of the tub. But I just refused.
yeah.
I was really stubborn. But I was just a fighter. I really wanted to make it through. And so like I didn't take the chair in the shower, but I remember he started he said that a lot of people when they're bedridden and things like that, no one goes to see them, no one visits with them. And it's true. I had amazing friends. We're still friends. But it's like you're kind of out of sight and out of mind, and it's not that they don't love you or that they forgot about you. It's just that life keeps moving for them, that they're busy, that they're working, that they're dating, that they have all this life going on, and you're suffering, and you can't choose your way out of it. And that was one of the hardest things for me, is like I went from this vibrant, outgoing, hang out with my friends, go after my dreams, you will it, you work for it, you persevere, and you get where you're going, you meet your goal. This instead was like if I pushed, I went backwards. If I didn't allow my body to rest so that it could heal, I wouldn't heal. If I wanted out of my suffering, I couldn't choose it. And if I wanted to be able to go meet up with my friends, that wasn't even an option. Like I couldn't even handle light for I think it took 6 months for my brain to be able to handle light.
Wow.
And then I had to work my way up to sound, and stimulation would make my brain swell. It was so hard. I couldn't have conversations. Like I was very lonely, and he knew that, and so he would just come and just sit and just give my parents a break from the 24-hour thing, and he'd just come sit. And then as I was able to talk and finally be able to do a little bit more, I didn't talk to my parents about how much I was suffering and how much it bothered me and hurt. And I would just try and muscle through it and be like, I got this, I can. And I just didn't want to be a burden. And he would come and he was like, Renee, there's Job in the Bible, and it's endless suffering, massive amounts of suffering. And in the end, he doesn't really get an answer. He just gets God's presence. And I was like, whoa, that hurts, but that just makes sense, because sometimes, I mean, I've known a lot of suffering in my life, and I've known a lot of trauma in my life. And then I knew what it's like to have long suffering, which was a whole different ballgame. But he let me vent and feel and get angry and like have all my emotions to really work through it, but in a way that kept pointing me to I still kept focusing on life, but it made me not feel bad for also being angry and hurt and sad in the situation I was in. And then I remember battling with, is it my lack of faith that I'm not healing? Like I saw people actually healing around me and things, and that was really hard. And I just remember really digging into prayer and really talking to God about healing and trying to understand it. And I think what I understood is that I just need him in it. Like whatever it looks like, if my life is suffering or if my life is really great and I'm living and thriving again, which I never imagined to be to this point, to be honest. So this is awesome.
Yeah.
But either way, I needed him. I couldn't go through that much suffering without him. He was the best part I had there was Jesus. And then I needed him every second, and I needed to read about Job, and I needed to talk to my friend. And so he let me have all those feelings and go through that. And then we would also start watching TV and Sharknado. I ended up loving Sharknado. It's just so dumb. I could only watch dumb stuff with no storylines. I went from serious actress to like zero storylines to be able to handle anything because my brain couldn't follow that. And that was after I took 2 years fully just listening to worship and sermons that I couldn't even take in. I couldn't read. So I went from an actress who memorized lines and I couldn't read anymore. And I went from hosting and being able to improvise and have whole interviews and talk, and then I couldn't even have conversation to know who I am. Like I'd go in and out of being present and being there. So it completely shifted my life. And when I went out of it, I would look at Pinterest and like design rooms and just look at pictures, and I'm like, okay, I know I'm going to be back in my head. I know this will pass. And I would just have to know that, even when I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
And then, and then JM was like a friend that was there through that whole season, but he also helped carry me to like my rooms or to the bathroom, wherever I had to go to help my parents out because they couldn't carry me on their own. And he
Mm,
was telling me yesterday, he was like, don't forget those times, like what you're saying, like don't forget where you
mm,
were because
yeah.
it'll help you understand where you're at now, and then how to always
Mhm,
have gratitude for where you're at, but then also how to that you'll just have the heart to give back. You'll have more to give because as much as I want to forget all the suffering is, I'm so grateful for the closeness I got with God and the suffering. Even though the suffering was painful, I got really close to Him,
mhm.
and then I'm thankful for where I'm at now because I just never pictured being here.
Yeah. It also gives you compassion for, like, the people who are still going through it, or, like, I know you're still going through it on your own, like, your own level, and you still have things that, you know what I mean, you're still healing, but it helps you probably to have compassion for the people who are in that place, like, they are bedridden and all those different things, and that's super unique because, like, I was thinking about it when you started talking about how, like, it's not people's fault for not checking in or whatever, they have their lives, and it kinda made me think that when, like, I know when I know that there's people going through, like, maybe a more, like, common disease or common illness, like, you think about them, like, you know what they're going through, like, even just an average person, if they know so and so has something that we know is not going to probably or doesn't have the best chance of ending well, you think of them more often, maybe you check in more often, but, like, Lyme still isn't, like, Lyme and then chronic Lyme, it's, like, 2 different things, like, it's not, like, a really common thing or common knowledge to know what that person's going through, so it's, like, you also can't even blame them for not reaching out because for all they know, we could be just living our lives, living it up, and you know what I mean? It's, like, it's just not.
They don't understand it, and I think
Yeah.
one of the easiest ways to kind of explain it, if you didn't ever have it or something, is just imagine a really bad infection that wants to take you down, and it's in every organ. Like whatever organ it got in, whatever tissue it got in, now there's an infection there. So it's not working right anymore. So say Lyme affects your liver. Well, now your liver isn't processing enzymes. You're not absorbing your nutrients. You can't detox your brain because your brain and your liver are what detox your brain. So um, that's a big deal. If Lyme is in your heart, that can be fatal. The brain and the heart one can be fatal. So there's that
Mhm.
information. It's in your vital organs, so they're just not going to work correctly anymore, and that's basically what Lyme is doing. So even if you don't understand Lyme, even if Lyme sounds weird, I literally told a doctor one time, he was like, "There's no way you have autoimmune encephalitis, so there's no way you have Lyme." Blah blah blah. I was like, "I don't care if you call it lemons. I don't care if you want to call it watermelon. I do not
That's what my
care about
mom
the
says
name.
all the
I just
time.
want your help.
Yeah.
Like, just give me brain scans
Yeah.
and a spinal tap, please, dear God. like I
Yeah,
just
that's what
want
my mom
that."
says all the time. She's like, "Why do people get so hung up on what it's
I don't
called?"
care about the
Like,
name. You don't have to say the name to me. I don't care about that. I just
yeah,
wanted to live again. So without an infection all over my body.
fix
And
me.
I don't care about the politics of it or how you feel about it. You can hate the name if you want. Call it whatever you want. I literally told him that. I was like, you can call it lemon, you can call it
That's so
orange, you can
funny.
call it whatever the heck you want. But just like all I wanted to know is, do I have autoimmune encephalitis? Please. So like that was
D
one of
Yeah.
the keys for me. I would watch Netflix, and uh, I I was praying about what was going on in my brain because all these people around me were getting better from doing the same treatments, and I was getting worse. Didn't make sense to me.
Mm.
It doesn't, you know. And originally, before I even knew I had Lyme, the way I felt was like the body doesn't just fall apart one day. Like it doesn't just
Yeah.
fall apart one day. Like the fact that I was hypoglycemic at 19, they were like, "Oh yeah, you're hypoglycemic." Well, I found out when I was in the hospital for 7 days. They're like, "Why are you hypoglycemic?" I was like, "What do you mean why? I just am." And they're like, "No, you shouldn't just be hypoglycemic. Like something causes that." I'm like, "I was never told that because I was never told that, you know." And like I started going, "Wait, this doesn't just happen to people." So I'm like looking at everything going on. I'm like, now I can't digest food. Now I don't know reality. Now I'm screaming in pain with my brain. So that's not just in my head and I'm a depressed person. It's like, and I wasn't even depressed. I had anxiety more than anything. But like, now you know why. But like, so I'm looking at all these things, and I'm like, the body doesn't just, oh, it's fine, and then and you're dancing on a tour, and the next day it's completely fallen apart, and you're like on your deathbed. Like that just doesn't happen. And so for people to say nothing's really wrong with you, we don't believe you, or she's doing it for attention, or for doctors to be like that it's Lyme, so it's not real. Well, this is very real. Like what just happened to my life and my body is very real. So I don't really mind how you feel about it, but at least acknowledge this is happening. Like this is real, and I just need your help. And why do we have to fight about what it's called? I just want your help. And I think one of the things that breaks my heart, and I feel like it's one of the things that breaks God's heart, is like how marginalized Lyme community is, because the system, like if you end up going to the ER and stuff, you can't really say it's Lyme. You have to be like, okay, I think I have autoimmune stuff going on. I think there's mast cell. I think that, and then they take it seriously and they're like, all right, let's get to work. But if you go in and you're like, yeah, Lyme stuff, they're like, send that person out. Like, put her on fluids.
Put her in the psych ward.
Yeah, IV psych ward, go home. like it's just like I don't understand it. I don't know why it has to be a fight. You have an infection all over your body. Like, why is that a fight? And it's been there a long time.
Yeah.
So basically, nothing works right anymore. Okay, let's get working right. So it made sense to me to heal on a cellular level, and so that was my focus, because I'm not a doctor. I don't know. I learned a lot now, but I didn't know much at all when I got it. And I just looked at it like, okay, we're made of cells. So it kind of makes sense to try stem cells, because if I'm made of those and my whole body's falling apart, then I need a chance to rebuild it. And so that was when I first did it. But then, like I said, other people were getting better from a lot of things that I wasn't. And then I saw the girl with her head wrapped on Netflix, and it said Brain on Fire. And I was like, that's me.
Yeah, that movie's insane.
That's my brain. Never watched it. Don't know if I can. But anyway.
Oh, I watched it, and it's like the parallels when I used to have the episodes and what she went through. Like, it was literally like watching myself on TV. It was so weird.
Yeah. I
don't watch it. It's probably, it was really hard to watch.
I didn't, because it was a nightmare for me to go through, and autoimmune encephalitis. That gives you like episodes that are like psychosis. It's so terrifying. Terrifying. And so you have no control over your brain. But I did have control in one way. But anyway, so back to this story. So I looked it up, and I saw the Brain on Fire thing, and I was going to watch the trailer, and I'm like, no, I don't want to get scared. And I was like, first I'm going to check and see if it's based on a true story. So I'm like, IMDb, based on true story. Then I want to make sure she's alive. Like, I don't want to dig any further until I know if this girl made it. So I go on YouTube and I find a TED Talk, and it was recent. And I was like, sweet, she's alive. So I was like, I'll watch the TED Talk. I don't need to watch the movie, because I had a feeling this is what I had. When I read about it, I was like, okay. So then I watched the TED Talk to a T. The stuff she was saying she experienced, I experienced. Like, there was a time where my mom came in the room to take care of me, and I got scared of her, and I was like, you're old. And she was like, what do you mean I'm old? And I was like, you're old. You're not my mom. You're not my mom. Like, I remembered her, I guess, from being a kid with dark hair, no gray hair. And she looked different, and I was terrified, because I'm like, what did you do with my mom? And that was like a funnier one, kind of sad, but funny. And then with my dad, there was a moment where there were several moments where I'd push them away because I didn't know who they were trying to help me. And and one of the worst episodes I ever remembered, there were two really bad ones, but one that was really, really bad was you think 24/7, like you have thoughts go through your head 24/7. And I thought every thought that was in my head was trying to harm me as a person. And I was trying to run from my own head. That was terrifying. I was in a doctor's office when it happened, and I was screaming and I was running. I was like scared of everything, didn't know what was real, just knew these were bad and they were attacking me. And I was like, my thoughts are attacking me. And she had a feeling I had autoimmune encephalitis. And it was right after I had seen the wrapped thing. And I was already telling her, I think I might have it. And she told me, I think you might have it. I watched the trailer last night. And that's how, instead of me ending up in a mental hospital, which would have never helped me. If I'd gone there, they would put me on who knows what for bipolar or whatever, psychosis, I don't know,
Yeah.
episode. And then they never would have found infection, never would have known my brain was completely swollen, and I would have died there. And that just makes me really sad to think of how many people aren't getting the treatment they need.
I know.
But so she did think that was it. I did think that was it. And my sister watched it and she was like, if this is it, you need to get help. Like they need to pay attention to this. And then that's when that doctor was like, you're above my care, but please go to Amen clinics. I've heard great things about them. And I was already told to go to them like a year before and I just didn't listen because I was like, no, it's Lyme. I was always trying to figure out what I had. So didn't go. I eventually make an appointment. They now have a Lyme specialist there, but they also can see if you have encephalitis without doing a spinal tap. I didn't know that was even an option, and I was scared of a spinal tap.
Oh, wow. I
was
didn't know
like,
that.
okay, I'm going to try it there then. And it was less money than using insurance going somewhere else. So I was like, I'm just going to try it, and it's a safer dye. They have the non-toxic dye for your brain contrast SPECT scan thing. So I did all the scans, flying colors. Like, just from the scan alone, they saw that I had it. Because when I was resting, I had an overactive brain going on, and I was resting. So your brain should be chilled out, basically. And they called it brain on fire. They said this is what's called brain on fire. You had white hot spots. They called them hot spots. My brain.
Wow.
If you see my brain scan, it's insane. I can send you the pictures. I'm fascinated by it because they have like a normal brain, and then what happened to mine? I'm like, I knew it, And then when they were reading me off, like everything that all the white spots and where they were and what it causes, it was like somebody was reading my mail. Like I finally, for the first time ever,
so crazy,
had answers, and I felt so relieved. I wasn't scared. I was just like, thank you. Now I can fight this. Like now I have an answer, and so then he sent me over to the other specialist doctor who worked with Lyme and who could test for this, and he was like, no, I don't think you have it. And I was like, literally in my brain scan, it shows this. He's saying I have this. I did this pandas thing and I have this. So like, and then he wasn't going to do it. And I had been 9 months since the Brain on Fire movie to the time I got tested. And thank God I had a hyperbaric chamber at home because it keeps inflammation down. But I probably would have died or been in a coma before I got there, if not for that. So thank you, Jesus, for providing what I needed while waiting for people to help me. But so from that moment to the moment I went to several places, and that was like where I'm like, call it lemons or watermelon, whatever you want to call it. And then it was a top specialist at a top hospital, and I could name it, but I just won't. But that was really bad what they did. And they were like, you have MS and you're probably on drugs and you were a model, so you're probably starving yourself. And when you're ready to be honest, I'll help you. It was one of the top in this nation. Yeah. So neurology.
Name it. No, I'm just kidding.
One of the top neurologists in the world. So then I end up going to Amen clinics, and that guy isn't going to test me. At this point, I'm fed up, and I was like, "It's my money. How much is it?" And he like told me how much it was, and I was like, "Okay, my money, willing to pay it. Run the test. Like I came to you to do it. If you won't do it, I'll go somewhere else." And he was like, "Okay, I'm going to send my blood work to Mayo Clinic." Came back, and I had 2 types of autoimmune encephalitis, infectious and non-infectious. We still don't know what caused the non-infectious. So I wasn't. The fact that I'm walking, talking clearly, now dancing, married, alive, like all these things
breathing
should not be possible. And most people who have that diagnosis are put on steroids and antibiotics for 6 months in a hospital under hospital care. I went 2 to 3 years with that going on and not knowing that was happening to me and alive. And so, and the treatments, the path that I went treatment wise, I prayed, I kept a miracle list. So that was one way I went through suffering, and I love this, but I just kept a miracle list so I could see everything good, everything small. There was some kind of quote that says either in life everything's a coincidence or everything's a miracle, but it can be your choice. And I was like, it was one president, I forget, I don't want to mess it up. I think it's Roosevelt, but I don't want to mess it up. So you'll probably look it up and it'll be different. Anyway, it came on the radio or something right before I was diagnosed with right before I was diagnosed or right before I went in for stem cells. I think it was before I went in for stem cells.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, I don't want to look at everything as coincidence anymore. I don't want to look at things as only cool, awesome things. They're huge or miracles. I'm going to look at everything awesome as a miracle, and I'm going to say thank you every time. Or, that's how I'm going to live my life. So I started a miracle list, and God knew I needed this so bad to go through suffering because I'd started it before. So as I was going through stem cell healing and everything, and all the long suffering and all the non-answers I had for a really long time to everything, because I didn't get tested and find out I had autoimmune encephalitis till 2019.
Wow,
And I
yeah.
was diagnosed in 2016 with Lyme.
Crazy.
So, but yeah, I wrote down every good thing, every small thing, when a person would call at the right time, or when I'd get a letter in the mail, or like a song would come on the radio and it just really spoke to me in that moment, or a treatment came available, or a doctor mentioned something, or I saw Brain on Fire on Netflix and now I knew what I had and it took 9 months to figure it out. But like literally most of the time, I say everybody has to be their own advocate, hands down. And you don't want to be when you're broken. When your brain's broken, when your body's broken, your heart, everything's all infected and stuff. It's the last thing you want to do is be a strong advocate because you just feel weak. But you have to be your own
Yeah.
advocate because you're your best advocate because you know what's going on in your body and you know what it was like before. And yeah, I don't know what I was saying other than that, but yeah.
No, that
You
was
have to
good.
advocate for yourself.
Well, yeah. Besides, like, maybe like if you have family, which even some people don't have family,
Yeah.
that are gonna
But
advocate
mine
for them
didn't really
for
advocate.
you.
They helped me a lot, but they just weren't researchers and they would listen to doctors. And I was the only one who knew what was really going on with me. So I would pray and I'd research and pray and I'd research and I'd research like a research fiend. And then after I got diagnosed with autoimmune encephalitis and after we found out about mast cell and after we found out about mold, after that moment I felt like I was supposed to stop researching and quit looking at Lyme stuff and really start focusing on life and letting God just bring to me what I need and let him take care of me. And yeah, focus on life and hand him my health. So that's what I did.
So, and the treatment that you did with the or I guess you don't even have to go through every single, like, the details of every single treatment, but from when you went from like the encephalitis and being really bad off, I guess, to now where you're at, like, what were the, I guess, just say like what the staples were,
Okay.
that, like, the neurofeedback was
Um,
one, right?
well, one cool thing to mention is after getting diagnosed with autoimmune encephalitis, just a few months later, I was asked to do Miss Tennessee. Or a couple weeks later, I was asked to do Miss Tennessee, and I thought that was insane because here I am with like this fatal brain disease. I'm like, what? And in a wheelchair. I said yes because I felt like I was supposed to say yes. And if anything, I felt like I said yes just to show people that are suffering with this stuff to keep saying yes to life. Because I didn't have any reason to say yes to it at that moment. Mine wasn't looking very good.
Yeah.
And it still wasn't in my head fully yet, but at least all day. But I did say yes, and I did go on that stage, and I had people help me get on and off. But I'm just so glad that I didn't give up on living just because I was diagnosed with stuff. But so, and then I found out about mold illness when I got back from the pageant, and it got really bad after that, and I went back into crisis, and that was mold. And so that was like one of the final pieces for me. But so I did the IV stuff and didn't detox well, so that was about to kill me. Then I did stem cells, and that I think helped like at least start regenerating some healthy cell tissue in there and stuff. And I think that saved my life, even though it didn't heal me and it did cause some more issues, but I still feel like it saved my life, especially my brain, because it does regenerate. And I had the hyperbaric chamber that whole time, so I was still doing that. And then, gosh, I did some of my favorite treatments I did were not the stem cells I did first. Those were from my own fat tissue, and I found out later that's still infected. So even though they fix it up and put it back in, you're still reinfecting yourself. But I eventually did. When I went back into crisis after the pageant, somebody reached out and was like, I've been watching you for a long time, and it's just breaking my heart. I can't watch you keep suffering anymore. she's like, I literally went camping with my husband. I went hiking. I'm like, what? You rode a bike? You know, like my mind just
Mhm.
blown. I'm like, this is possible. And she's like, and I had neuro, and I used to have seizures 24 hours a day. Like I went through, and she did. She went through all this stuff, and I had seizures. Like we both had a lot in common. And her husband had a clinic and learned how to do stem cells and all this stuff to help heal his wife. And she's awesome. She's doing interior
Wow.
design. She's amazing. But she was where I was, and we were some of the really worst cases with that stuff. And here she is, like living. So they were like, we're going to gift you at wholesale stem cells, and we want to see if we can help you. So we'll do the whole week. We'll do the ozone treatment 10 pass. We'll do the IVs to get your body ready for stem cells. We will do peptide therapy afterwards to help peptide treatments to help neurogeneration with your brain tissue, and then also to help heal my gut and my immune system from being autoimmune to switch it to immune, normal healthy immune system so it wouldn't attack my brain anymore. And it was around Christmas, which I thought was so cool.
Mm.
And so in 2019 in December, my family and I went out to Kentucky. Never been there. Or Kansas, sorry, Kansas. And there it was snowing and it looked like a Hallmark movie. And I got to watch Hallmark movies
Mm.
while laying in a little lounge chair while getting all this treatment done.
Mhm.
And there's one treatment we didn't know if I was going to make it through. It looked like I was going to have to go to the ER, and I did make it through. But it was really a lot of suffering, but in a really beautiful place. And it was right before Christmas.
Mhm.
But that was one of the best treatments I did, and that was umbilical cord stem cell. So it's from a live birth. They
Mm.
donate the umbilical cord, and then that has been proven to help heal MS. They're using it for ALS trials. They've used it on Parkinson's, and so we did that, and that was one of the most healing things. But I didn't know stem cells to heal. They tear
Wow.
down the nerve, and then they rebuild the tissue. And then they also can cause a lot of inflammation. So I had some extra brain inflammation to go through the healing. So it was hard, but that was a
Mhm.
game changer for me. And then shortly after that, I went catatonic. I started getting very catatonic, and my parents called my doctor, and he got on the phone and prayed with them. And he was one of the best doctors I've ever had, and he never gave up on me. And it didn't matter how many other doctors were giving up or who didn't think I was going to make it. He always did. And he even told me that
Mm.
it can change your cell count by what you believe. If you actually have hope that you're going to live, your cell count can be healthier. And when you start believing you're dying, your cells will actually get unhealthy. Your white cell count goes down.
Whoa.
And it's proven in science. And he's like, I need you to hold on to hope. I need you to do that. Can you do that? And I was like, yeah. Like it was so hard. But he helped me. He
Mhm.
helped me over the phone. I had some crazy doctors that, were awful and said horrible things, but I've had some amazing ones. And I called it a team
Mm.
because I had two from Amen, one that worked on, we did genetic testing. That was a huge game changer. So genetic testing showed a lot of how to help my brain and help my body heal because it showed if you had methylation issues, but also I had a rare brain thing. So it caused my brain to have inflammation anyways that was abnormal. So
Mm.
it's super rare to be born with, and I had two, and you usually only have one. So if you even have it, so I had both, which was crazy. But so I had one working on that, I had one that worked with Lyme and autoimmune encephalitis and specialized with the two. So Amen Team Clinic. Then I had an amazing doctor up in Minnesota who I always worked long distance with, but he was incredible, and I invited him to my wedding. Like he's amazing. And then
Mhm.
I had a naturopath in California that helped with some stuff too. But I definitely went more integrative. That helped me
Mhm.
more so that they could really understand brain and Lyme, brain and Babesia.
Yeah.
And then I did that stem cells was a game changer. Then that doctor, when I was going catatonic, was like, how soon can you get in for neurofeedback? And I was like, I was thinking about calling them like next week. And he goes, can you go tomorrow? Can you go tomorrow? And I was like,
Mhm.
yeah, I think I can go tomorrow. And I went the next day, catatonic. People helped me in there, went in there, did one session, and it's like a light came on in my brain. And I literally prayed that a light would come on in my brain. And it just felt like they turned the
Mm.
lights on. And I knew I was going to live. And then we kept doing the neurofeedback. But over that summer, we
Mm.
also detoxed all the Lyme out of my body. I did PK
Mm.
protocol all summer. And then I did hard hard hyperbaric chamber oxygen therapy so it could kill the infection in my brain and heal my
Wow.
brain. Then I came home, went catatonic because that treatment was too intense. Um, and I didn't ask my doctor how to do it correctly because I didn't want him to stop me. And I wish I would have because it put me back in crisis. And that's why I ended up having to do neurofeedback. And then from neurofeedback, it still wasn't working quite well for me. And somebody kept telling me to try cranial sacral therapy.
Oh my gosh, I just had that done like a couple weeks ago by accident and it's
Yeah.
incredible.
Or wait, I was already doing cranial sacral therapy. I already did that. That is incredible. I'd list that as one of my favorite treatments. It brings down
Wow.
inflammation in the brain. But no, it was I do it now. It's the top two bones in the neck, and it's a certain kind of chiropractic here. But it works on just the
Wow.
atlas. I'll have to think of the name. Anyways, that's incredible. I still do it. But every time they did brain scans in the hospital after my injuries, they never looked at my neck, which just blows my mind that no one ever looked at my neck. And so I finally had that looked at, and basically it's like this, and your brainstem is in the center, like this. And from my
Mhm.
injuries, it scissored my brainstem. And because it was so
Whoa.
off like this, my brain couldn't communicate to my organs correctly. My nervous system wasn't in line. So really, it kept
Holy
me from
cow.
being able to fully heal, even though I'm doing all this stuff. So I'm doing neurofeedback. Then I put that with neurofeedback, game changer. Like, but the first few times I did
Wow.
it, I was about to pass out, or I did pass out several times. And I also my nervous system went crazy because it was like recalibrating, and I had dysautonomia really bad. And that's what started helping heal the dysautonomia, which is very autonomic, just is flipping from extreme to extreme,
Mm.
which is really dangerous. It messes with your heart and your breathing and all that, your blood pressure.
Mm.
Um, so that was a big game changer for me. And then I liked peptide, and then finding out deficiencies like B12 deficiency and stuff helped heal my brain because I wasn't absorbing it right.
Yeah.
And absorbing my
Holy
nutrients,
cow. It's like literally a cocktail
huge.
of things.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was, and it was a lot of trying different things, but I feel like everything I did at least took me a step further. And some things I just
Yeah.
didn't do correctly, or I didn't ask my doctors how to do it wisely and use wisdom, and that would set me back.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, and now give us like just an update about where you're at. We already said you're like living in Nashville and
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
you're
So
dancing
that's
again
my
or
favorite part. So in 2020, I started healing, and I was so bummed because here I am now. I can date, now I can do all these things, and everybody went on lockdown. And I made a joke that I was
Mhm.
already quarantining before quarantine was cool because I was
Yeah.
quarantining for years. But anyway, I started healing then, and I was so bummed. And I did go in and out of crisis. Like my body was really trying to heal. So my hormones were super affected. My adrenals were shot, just all kinds of stuff. So that was really
Mhm.
tough. So going through all this, doing the neurofeedback, doing all the things. And then I was really, really, really healing. Like really, you could tell I had color in my skin. I was putting weight on. My hair wasn't falling out in clumps anymore. Anyway, so the doctors were like, "I think you can try and live on your own if you really want to try." Because I was like, "Do you think I could try this?" I basically was telling my parents, I was like, "Hey, I saw that one of my friends has a room for rent in Nashville. I wanted to live at the beach. That was my plan. But I saw that there was a room for rent. And I just mentioned it, and they were like, "Well, how much is the room?" I was like, "About this much." They were like, "Maybe you should try it." And I was like, "I don't have any money. Like I am out. I've been out of money for a very long time at this point." And they were like, "Well, we will
Mhm.
help you to do this if you want to. Like we want to give you a chance." And I was terrified
Mm.
to try again. I was all ready to move out on my own after the pageant. I was like, yes, I'm ready to move to Nashville or LA and get back to work. And I'm so excited. And I went back into crisis, and it scared me so much. I didn't want to try again. I didn't want to relapse again. And everybody
Mhm.
said, well, if you relapse, what's the worst that happens? You come home? I was like, yeah. So they kind of talked me into it. And I just like went for it. I was so scared. And I moved out here. And I was able to I had to learn how to go to a grocery store again. I had to learn how to drive again. At first I could only drive like out of my driveway and pull back in. And then I could drive to the stop sign and come back home. And then one day I think I drove like 5 minutes and I was crashing, and my doctor's like, well, you did too much. I was like, I drove out of the neighborhood. Like, that's all I did.
Yeah.
Like, how can I live if I'm not doing this? So I ordered groceries for a while. Like, I had to do different things to just, but I was so determined to try. And my family helped me try. And then that friend knew my whole situation, so she didn't need the background of the work proof and all the money and when you can afford it. Like, she just trusted that my family was going to pay, and she wanted to help me. So I just had help from a lot of people. And so I moved out, and then it was quite a rocky road at first. But I never went back into crisis to the point where I couldn't be on my own to go through it. So I was like, well, then I guess I can still do it. And then I started healing, started dating Mike, and he started getting me out to like try hiking and things that I hadn't done. And I was like, I can't do that. I can't do that. And there's one hike we went on, and I made it out there. And then he had to like piggyback me back. And I was like, thank you. And he's like, see, but you did it. And I was like, I did it. Like, so, I mean, I just started trying things, and I would make myself go walk and build up to how far I could walk. And that was before he ever took me hiking. I did 4 months, like, single, learn how to live again. So I would walk, and I started driving to build up to driving, and had to work with my adrenals to be able to handle that and not crash in my autonomic system. And anyway, so I got asked to fill in as a dance teacher. And I thought that was the craziest thing I'd been asked. And I told her, I was like, you have no idea. Like, you don't know what I've just been through. There's no way I can dance again. Maybe I can watch. And she's like, no, I really think you can. You should. And I was like, okay. So I let go, and I'm almost passing out. My nervous system was just so terrified of doing a new thing, is trying to protect me. And I've learned now, I've really had to work on healing my nervous system after going through everything. That's helped a lot. But anyways, dancing helps heal that. Like, dancing, living, sunshine, just living again. Like, it really does help you heal. And so I thought, well, dancing makes you use your body, your brain, you have sound, you have everything at once. So I can't see how that couldn't be healing. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to try this. And sure enough, like, I end up teaching, and then she's like, well, can you choreograph? And I was like, wait, I'm going to choreograph? I didn't think I could do that. Then she got COVID, and I had to help choreograph a whole musical. And I was like, well, now I really know what I can do. And I did it. And then now I'm a dance teacher. I'm up for a job that's 40-hour work week, where I'm going to get to do a lot of really cool things in ministry, and I'm super excited. I hope I get that. And my husband and I lead worship together. I've led girls groups with recovery. It's been crazy, Michaela. Like, I can't believe how much I'm able to do and how much I'm living. And so it really does help, because when I do get scared of stuff, I do look at how far I've come and what I'm doing. But just to like talk to somebody who was where I was at, I remember when I couldn't see a light at the end of the tunnel. Like, there was no light there. Like, you couldn't see it. And it was really hard to stick in the fight for years. It diagnosed in 2016 was full crisis mode. And then I started healing in 2020. So what is that, like 4 years?
4
Yeah.
years, yeah.
And then so 5 years later, I found out that means grace in the Bible, which I think is cool. But 5 years later, because I know I'm here by grace, but I had testing done, the DNA testing, and that's when it showed up, that South Africa bug. That's when I found out I had that babesia from South Africa, and that was a big answer for me. But I also found out that they were all inactive infections, like Lyme, everything wasn't actively hurting my body anymore. And
Wow.
and it was a choice to like trust and believe that. And then when people say, are you in remission, or are you healed, or whatever you are, I get frustrated with some stuff I still deal with, but the way I look at it is I'm living life, and I'm getting to live it fully. and married and dancing, and I was a lead in a musical, so I was singing, dancing, and acting on stage. Like, this is insane. And I was in a hospital one of those weeks, but I still went and got on stage the next day, and that was crazy. But I
Mhm.
did it, and I'm living. So to me, that's healthy, and I'm grateful for my health,
Yeah.
and I'm grateful to be alive, and um, I feel like that's healed to me. Like,
Mhm.
even if I have to do things to help my body function well,
Mhm.
and have a rhythm that involves rest and like ways to work with my nervous system so that I can continue to do things. But I'm enjoying my life, and it's a good life, and I know everything now is a gift. Like, I've had it all be gone. And so I don't know. Now I'm just super grateful to be able to use all of it. And I signed with an agent.
Yeah.
So I have 2 acting auditions today, actually, to do.
That's awesome. Yeah, it
Yeah.
just like it's kind of come like full circle your whole story, and you're doing so much now, but then I also know like the things that you've talked about pursuing and continuing to do. So, I feel like I know that you always used the symbol of like the butterfly throughout your healing. Like
Yeah.
you would like post about it and you would send it to me and like all these different things. And that's totally like, you're definitely, even though you still may be going through things, like your story is one to like show to not like to always be an advocate for yourself, to always like pursue healing, pursue treatments, like pursue an answer, like not give up on yourself when other
Mhm.
people are giving up on you. That's huge, and so many people need to hear that. I feel like especially in the Lyme community, like when you are getting answers from doctors that don't feel right or don't like in your gut, they don't feel right, or they're told that you're crazy or it's all in your head, or that no, you don't have this, even though like the
And you
test
start thinking it
shows a
is all in your
positive.
head because when you hear that so much, you're like, am I making myself this way? Like,
Yeah.
what am I
But it's like,
doing?
yeah. Yeah. So, so we'll share like on your page, we'll share some of the things that you've talked about like that have helped you in your healing, and then we'll share like, yeah, if you end up writing a blog post, because there's just like so much more, like I feel like this episode was just like introducing you
Yeah.
and your story and all you've been through, but I know there's going to be like more that we'll do together. So I'll make sure to link like your social media. I'll link your I love the wee line page in the description, so everyone can go follow you, check out like I definitely want to, we'll add like some of the videos and stuff you've done, just because it's cool to see now. Like it'll be cool for people to see like the pictures and videos of putting like images to what
Yeah.
you went through, I
And one of
think.
the
So
game changer moments when you were mentioning like it's easy to want to give up when people are giving up, the beginning around the stem cell time is when several doctors gave up, and I knew they were just going to let me die. And I was like, well, should I let me die too? Like, am I not going to make it?
mm,
And I started thinking, I was like, okay, if I was in my right mind and if I was healthy, what would I do? And I was like, I would fight. And I went on
mm,
Instagram and I started Googling like something with remission and Lyme. And I just kept coming across stem cells. And that's what led me to try it or think about it. And then the very next morning, I woke up in the morning and Kelly Osbourne was on there on a talk show with her mom, and she was like, "I'm in remission from 10 years of neurological Lyme, and I had seizures, and I did this kind of stem cells at the clinic that literally I was seeing on Instagram the night before." And I
mm,
did randomly reach out to a girl at like 2 in the morning who got back to me and was like, "It's going to be one of the hardest things you'll ever do. It's stronger than like doing chemo, so it's not going to be an easy treatment,
mm,
but it'll give you a chance." And I was like, that's all I need.
mm-hmm.
And that was when I first went really hard at like fighting for myself when they were going to give up. And
Yeah.
then from there, I had
Yeah.
my mom a few times have to say that I'm not letting you give up. And when I felt like a burden, people would have to tell me they're not letting me give up. And but
Mm,
ultimately, I had to not give up, and that's just really hard to do when you're in that. It's hard to not quit when it takes so long.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. But your story definitely has like of a lot of hope, and yeah. So I appreciate you sharing it, and yeah, like I said, we'll link everything for people to be able to follow you and check out your stuff.
Sweet.
And I know we'll have you on again. Maybe we'll have Mike on sometime.
Yeah.
I want to start doing some episodes with spouses because they have a whole nother side to
Yeah.
it. I know Andrew probably has a whole lot to say, so maybe Andrew
I
and
want to
Mike.
hear what they say too. I'm so curious.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, they were dating us as we
Yeah.
were healing, which I think is
Mhm.
so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I remember a lot of
And
guys,
then when
like,
you're married, you
I
seem
thought wanted to date me when I was sick, and they would act like it. But then when the rubber hits the road, they're kind of like, wait, this isn't, you can't do all the fun things with me. Like, you can't go out, you can't date, you can't do all this. Like, they really wouldn't want it, you know? And I
yeah.
really thought nobody could. And then enter in Mike, and we were FaceTiming for like months before I moved out to Nashville. And then when we first got together, it freaked me out, and I was like, I am not ready, and I like backed out for 4 months, and that's a different story. But then we got fixed back up by somebody who didn't know we knew each other. I prayed about it, met up with him again, and for that moment on, we've been dating ever since. Then we got married, but yeah, he didn't. He never saw me as a sick person.
Yeah.
He never saw me as less than his equal like partner. Like that I lift him up just as much and build him up and am
Mhm.
strong for him. And so his strength for me sometimes looks more physical, you know. Um, yeah, like I pinched a nerve yesterday, and he saw me. I was laying on a mat, biomat thing with all the red light. Then I rolled over onto my side. He's like, "Oh, honey," he's like, and he just like lifted me all the way to my feet. I was like, "Thank you." But I mean,
Mhm.
not that it has anything to do with Lyme, but it's so nice to have somebody there now instead of having to do it all on
Yeah.
your own. Even if it's hard times and good times, it's just so nice to have somebody who's not leaving and who will go through it with you.
Yeah. Yeah, and for people who, like, are waiting for that person, like, maybe they haven't come yet, like, it can feel, like, extra alone during those times. Yeah, like you said, you go through, "Well, who would, like, wanna put up with this almost?" I know that that's something I thought a lot about, or, like, how are you gonna explain to them what you go through and that they're gonna, like, actually believe
Yeah.
you or understand, but, um, yeah, I would just say for anyone that's listening that doesn't have that person, like, they're totally gonna come. It's just I just believe in, like, God's timing in that, and, like, he knows way better than I did, like, when I wanted him wasn't the right timing,
Yeah.
so yeah. So,
And I know that like the biggest thing I did through sickness was just focus on who I was outside of being sick. Like I couldn't lose sight
yeah,
of that. And I think by not
yeah,
losing sight of that, when I stepped in life again, like to really get to live it again, when Mike met me, like he would even tell you our dating, like he knows a little bit about my Lyme journey, but we don't sit around and talk about Lyme, and I don't talk about
yeah,
health issues. Like every now and then I'll be like, should I try this product out because I really want something to help my gut? But like,
mhm,
but we really don't. I don't know. We don't make Lyme like a. It's not really following me into my story. Like it's
yeah,
just I take things I need to nourish and be good to my body, and every now and then I'll talk to him a little bit about stuff, but he doesn't know the bulk of it, and I don't think anybody ever will. You know, that wasn't there watching
mm,
it, and it wasn't you because only you know the most, you and God. So, um,
mhm,
but yeah, I continue to see myself outside of it, and even in the relationship, we don't. It's not really a big part of it. It's like
yeah,
stuff I went through that shaped who I am today and what I feel called
yeah,
to do to help others. And then he went through his
yeah,
own addiction and his own story. And so he felt called to help people with
yeah,
that. So I know some of his story, he knows some of mine. We both know we're passionate to help others, and we've both been recovering and healing together. It's really cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is really cool. It's I'd say a note to end on is like for people who are like listening and going through this, like whether they're going through Lyme or anything, like it's always important to like make your own miracle list like Renee did, or like focus
Who you
on
are.
who you are outside of like the Lyme or whatever you're going through, because ultimately that's going to be probably one of like the best things that's going to not only help you heal, but like help you feel human in
Yeah.
those like really dark and confusing moments. So, yeah. And then you can also like even like take out a picture of yourself like from when you were a kid or something, and if you're not sure, like you said, do I keep fighting, like look at that person and like fight for that person, because sometimes it's hard to be happy with the
Yeah.
person when you're looking at yourself and you feel so sick.
And
But
you
if
don't
you
feel like
like I had,
you're like, I'm not me anymore
yeah.
anyway, like who am I? And it was just really important for me to, how did I do it? A lot of scripture for sure, like telling me like my value and my worth, that it wasn't what I could offer, what I could do at work, or what I did with my
Mhm.
talents or any of that stuff. Because when all that was gone and I was just in a bed, what am I worth there? And so that was a really hard place to be. And then I would dream up things. I would like get out Pinterest, and I would listen to sermons on dating and marriages and having a good marriage. And uh, I would focus on how I want to give back and what I'm learning in my journey. And
Mm.
I really just kept focusing on life ahead of me. And one of my biggest goals was to ride a bike and eat ice cream on a beach. That was like one of my biggest things that I really wanted to do. And I've done that. But
That's
but
funny.
yeah, I never stopped. I didn't focus on Lyme. When I was in Lyme, as much research as I did way more of just pouring in sermons that were about life stuff and
Yeah.
about things, people, the person I want to be, and the relationship I want to have one day that I want to be really good at, and how I want to decorate my house. And like I focused on those things, and I poured in so much. The way I say it is like when you're facing death all the time, you have to pour in so much life, like as much life as you
Mm.
possibly can. So I was like pouring in life, like mad amounts of life, and building up my faith and building up my spirit. So my spirit was the strongest it's probably ever been when my body was the weakest it's ever been. So my spirit was
Yeah.
so alive and so fully living. And like that, I think is really important, because when you're laying in the dark and laying in your bed all day, like how are you going to feel alive and vibrant and like full of life? And so my spirit was full of life.
Yeah. That's so
Yeah.
cool. Well, thanks so much for sharing your
You're
story,
welcome,
and
girl.
yeah, I'm excited to share it, and I'm excited for people to hear like all the stuff that you've overcome,
Yeah.
and
I'm
yeah,
teaching dance
and
today
have
and
fun at the
headed to the
beach.
beach tomorrow.
There you go.
That'll be awesome.
From bed to the
Yes.
beach.
I know. All
That's funny. All right.
right.
I'll talk to you
Miss you, girl.
later.
Bye.
Bye.